Well, here we are on a Friday afternoon, as distinct from a Friday morning, because Pat and I were both extremely busy today doing important business. That would be true,
Yes,
Pat, wouldn't it?
absolutely. I was actually feeling very religious this morning, but I'm not going to even explain that. Go ahead.
You're always religious. I can see. I can see the odor of sanctity arising.
Oh, yes. Do you see the wee crucifix above my head? Uh, or the wee
Okay.
saint circle?
Anyway, I'll not say what I was doing. Okay.
Yeah.
The stories we're going to have a look at here are, well, again, they're always in all of the papers, but the one I've
Yeah.
taken is from The Guardian. And the headline is Don Butler ejected from Commons for saying Johnson has lied repeatedly, which
Yeah.
really has to be the most ironic headline I've read in a long time. Apparently, you cannot call somebody in the House of Commons a liar.
Yeah.
Even though Boris Johnson has proved time and again that's exactly what he is.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an honourable tradition of not calling a person a liar?
Well, as a young reporter, I remember going to a meeting of all places, Donegal County Council, and I remember a guy getting expelled or suspended or asked to leave for calling another member a liar. And apparently it's the House rules that you don't call somebody a liar. You can say they're misleading or economical with the truth, but you cannot call someone a liar. What Colin Butler said, isn't it amazing? You get done for calling somebody a liar, yet the person who told the lie gets away with it. In other words, you're punished. And every time I hear that, someone like that, I always think, for some reason, this is true. Israel comes into my mind. It isn't, if you condemn the actions of Israel and no bombing a civilian target like in Palestine, you're considered an anti-Semitic. You know, and the greater crime has been considered an anti-Semitic than condemning the bombing of killing of innocent people. So in other words, the crime that they commit is considered of less importance or import than you're condemning what they have done.
Yeah.
Now, so that to me is absolute standing morals on. I know political correctness gone crazy. So I agree with Don Butler. To call Boris Johnson a liar is hardly an untruth.
It's only beginning to say what he is.
Yeah.
The irony of it all is, of course, that the MP cannot themselves lie to the House of Commons. And if they do, they've had it. They're caught out in it. And you remember way back in Profumo's time, Profumo was, doing all sorts of tricky stuff with Christine Keeler and others.
And the Russian guy.
But the sin that he committed was to lie.
It was lying to Parliament.
So isn't it an odd thing? You can't call somebody a liar, and you can't lie in the House of Commons, and we found out. But it's just sort of crazy.
But Jude, did you see the Dominic Cummings interview on? I think it was Tuesday night with your own.
I didn't see the full thing. I saw excerpts from it. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he basically said Johnson was a liar and that he was a charlatan, that he hadn't a clue what he was doing, and that he basically said the same as Don Butler, but he didn't say it in Parliament, so he couldn't be thrown out. By the way, one thing I liked about Koonsberg that night, Koonsberg has allegedly been very close to Dominic Cummings and all the rest, and she went out of her way to say to her that not only did she talk to him, but she talked to many other sources. So she said that about 3 times, and I think, no, those Shakespeare's one, methinks you are protesting, me don't protest too much. Sorry, Jude, you go ahead.
I didn't know that she was had the reputation for being close to or on the side.
Oh no, Cummings said it on several occasions. That when there was something big going down, the only person he ever rung was Koonsberg.
Well, it was a good choice. Like, she was an influential woman. But it's an interesting thing this about being a liar, because when you say you're a liar to somebody says something and you know it's not true, you see a liar. But actually, the word liar suggests that you are this is something you do habitually.
Yeah.
You're not saying, if somebody tells one lie, it's a different. You really shouldn't call them a liar. But in Johnson's case, most definitely he qualifies.
Yeah, well, there's absolute proof. He was sacked by the Tory party for lying to Michael Howard. He was sacked by, I think, Max Hastings for lying when Hastings was editor of the Telegraph. And I think he was sacked about something else too. About Liverpool.
I think he was sacked from the Spectator as well, was he?
Yeah, well, I'm not 100% sure, but he's been removed from at least 2 positions for lying.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, we can sort of laugh at it and so on, but actually it's sort of scary that, because once you pull away that prop, that notion that people should tell the truth and that it's a shameful thing not to tell the truth, especially if you're a public figure, you
Yeah.
pull that away and, you know, you really have a sort of chaotic situation.
You're down into a jungle of dishonesty. So any lie goes, and who do you believe? And then the whole props that keep any sort of civilized society going disappear.
Yeah. Anyway, was she kicked out of the House of Commons?
Yeah, she was kicked out of the House. But I think it was the last day of sitting, so I don't suppose she'll pay too much of a price for it. If she's suspended for a week, she would be, you know.
Yeah, the irony is she probably did it deliberately, knowing what was going to happen. Because if she had, as you said, you're economical with the truth or whatever, that probably would have gone unreported, or at least it wouldn't have got much publicity. But by being kicked out of the House of Commons, she's got lots of publicity. And it reminds people of what a bloody liar Johnson is.
Joe is,
yeah, what a nasty man. Although, you know, I'm wondering about that. Are they, you know, you could look at those traditions in the House of Commons as being corny, where, you know, you can be a liar, but you're not allowed to be called a liar. You can be a liar, but you better not lie in the House of Commons. They're sort of like those Japanese tea ceremonies. You wonder sometimes, are they part of the protection of sort of civilization that we put on?
They are to an extent, Jude, and you know something. I sort of like, say if you got caught lying to Parliament in the past, you had to resign. I agree with that, because you're misleading the representatives of the people. You know, all the MPs are sent there to represent their constituents. In other words, you're representing the plain people of your country. And if you lie to the Parliament that makes the rules, you should pay a price for that. I agree with that.
And I suppose, as they say, you know, they shouldn't be using unparliamentary language.
Well, that's it.
You know, she used to use it. And I suppose if you open the doors, whether it's in a Donegal council or whether it's in the House of Commons,
that's
calling
the point.
People liars. You know,
but you see, come back to then it becomes you're hoisting your own petard in a sense. You know, the woman was telling the truth. She wasn't actually lying when she called him. So, but you can't sort of legislate for every occasion. So sometimes the exception proves the rule.
Well, my final point on this, I think, Pat, would be no politician of any stripe says anything without a part of their brain asking themselves, how is this going to play politically for me? So absolutely. I'm afraid I'm cynical.
The duty of every politician is to get himself elected. That's his first rule, or her. Doesn't matter.
Okay, well, let's push on because we're really tripping along with a lot of topics here. Again, this is from The Guardian, and it's this eternal wrangling over the Northern Ireland Protocol. I was on Press TV last night, you know, Pat.
The Russians, you and Donald Trump have been bought off by the KGB, or what do we call them these days?
Well, it was a 5 minute, it's a 5 minute Skype thing, and you know, that's very interesting at Press TV. I've been on a couple of times, but they used to be available on RTV. But they've now been sort of taken down. The Press TV, as you know, just for people's information, is an Iranian television station based in London. And if you listen to it, in fact, you know, I don't, any more than Al Jazeera, it doesn't strike me as being a terribly, you know, a propaganda machine or anything like that. But anyway, they were on.
But Jude, it doesn't take the West side on every occasion.
That's what you see.
Wasn't George Galloway on Press TV?
That's right. That's right. But I'm quite surprised that the British are sufficiently liberal that they allow these people to have their stations in London and to broadcast from there. I think it's a good thing. It's a very interesting one, actually. Maybe I'll come back to it again. But for example, I had, as you know, I had a guest blog put up. I put up a guest blog about a week ago. A guy, a conspiracy theorist.
But the vaccinations,
Now, several people assumed that that was my view, and I explained it wasn't my view. I didn't agree with anything, but I thought he'd write an opinion. My daughter contacted me, and I think she commented on Facebook even, and she was furious. She said she really is very hard against these people, anti-vaxxers. And she says, look, that's a gun these people are holding, and you're giving them a platform on which to stand. they're infecting people with lies that could be
Yeah.
life-threatening in the end. It's a very
Yeah,
interesting.
but Jude, I agree with. I know your daughter's a medic and all the rest. It's all fair, and I know what she's coming from. But then, hey, Jude, the reality is they're out there, and see if you don't shine a light and stuff like this. I disagree with her totally. I agree with you totally on this one. I think you were quite right to put it up there because Jude, the number of, and I'm right. I refer to them as Looney Tunes. I really genuinely do, because Jude, you know, someone say if you're living in your private life, don't wear a mask, don't wash your hands, don't social distance, do whatever you want. That's grand. But see if you're a school teacher or if you're on a bus or you're at a meeting, you know, you have no right to decide for me. If you don't want to wear a mask or a restaurant or wherever or cinema, don't bother. But see, you don't get to decide for me whether I've got diabetes and if I get COVID or whatever, that then you put me in danger. Jude, there was no, I'm not going to keep going on this, but there was CNN last night. There was a young couple. The guy was certainly anti-vax and all the rest, and he has been seriously ill. And he's total change of tune last night. He says, "Look, please go and get vaxxed." And it was a straightforward interview. He said, "I bought this thing on social media. I didn't listen to the science and so on." And he said, "I bought it totally." And he almost died, and his wife almost died. So he said, "You know, I've changed totally." And he says, "There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of conspiracy theory out there." I haven't yet to meet anyone delighted about a vaccine. No one's saying it's perfect, but it's better than getting the virus.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, it's a hugely interesting area. But anyway, let's go back.
But let's go back to
the protocol. I'm wondering if there's anything new to be said about the protocol, actually.
Jude, there is. Go ahead, but there is.
You tell. Well, I'm just taking it from the papers here, and it's saying that the EU is really getting exasperated, is the word they use. We'd probably use it for a cruder term, perhaps. But they're getting exasperated. Frost and Johnson negotiated over 31 pages of agreement that's applying to Ireland and customs and animal health checks, etc. And now they're turning around and they're saying, "Oh, all these regulations, we just can't have them."
No, Jude, by the way, you left out one important word. There were 31 pages of annexes onto the original agreement. And for a turnaround now to say they didn't know, the Guardian pointed out that was spelt out to them very, very clearly, every rule that applies in Northern Ireland. And annexes, detail after detail after detail. The other thing, Jude, do you remember about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Ursula von der Leyen came out with a very caustic remark when she said it was written in English. You know, in other words, did you not understand what was in your own agreement?
You don't know your own language. But I mean, it's amazing. I think again, it comes down to Boris Johnson, because you remember Theresa May said no British Prime Minister would agree to any notion of having a border in the Irish Sea. So she managed. I said that was clever of her because she excluded herself from doing that, and she's also put a hold on anybody else doing it. Boris Johnson went to the DUP's convention and said the same thing. Oh no way. He went back and he signed quite clearly an agreement that put a border there.
You see, Jude, everybody knows what he done, and he knows what he done. Frost knows what he done, and then he went to the country and got an 80-seat majority on the state. And now, the minute he's got his majority and a safe majority, he's now trying to unpick the deal that he already done, and it's dishonest. They've already broken the agreement, Jude, on 3 occasions. They're threatening allegedly to trigger Article 16, but no one seriously believes that they're going to do that, because that would just explode in their face. Jude, there's 2 things. Remember two things. Remember the démarche. Remember the diplomatic démarche that was given by Biden, basically telling Britain, don't do this. You know, about Article 16. That was about a month ago. It was very rare that the Americans would issue a démarche to an ally like Britain. So there's a smoking gun there waiting on them. And the second one was Richard Neal. He's the chairperson, I think, of the Ways and Means, which is basically trade, as far as I remember, in America. And he was on RT yesterday, and he said the one thing, he says, myself, Pelosi, and everyone else in America is saying that, he says, we have solved the world's longest running, namely with the Good Friday Agreement. And he says, look, he can work within the Irish protocol and the Brexit agreement, but don't try and change it. He says it's not going to happen because we're not going to back it. So Britain's going to push a lot of water up a hill if they think they can walk away from this one.
Yeah, I think the EU is sincere when they say, look, we're prepared to be as flexible as possible to make this thing work. I think everybody agrees with that. That
Yeah.
the EU should try to make it as simple and as clear and uncluttered to do business from GB to the north and back again.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, if Great Britain, if Boris Johnson doesn't understand the notion that there must be borders to the EU, I mean, what kind of world living in?
Jude, the Irish Times, I wrote it down, said what they were proposing this week was dramatic, audacious, and certain to be rejected.
Yeah, exactly. He must be aware of that. Again, you know, you wonder if it isn't just game playing on his part.
Yeah.
It's certainly game playing, I believe, on the part of unionist politicians, in that they're saying, oh, it's making business terribly hard for business. What I would like is somebody to do a poll on businesses here and ask them, okay, I'm sure there is inconvenience. Number one, how much on a scale of 1 to 10 are you being inconvenienced by this protocol? And two, whatever way you're being inconvenienced, how do you think that could be made easier within the protocol? I'd like that to be, and push the politicians to the side for a minute.
But hold on, just to follow up, there's a guy called Neil Richmond who was on yesterday morning on RT, and he absolutely destroyed Sammy Wilson on RT. First time the gloves came off totally from a southern politician, because normally they are slick round unionist politicians like you would, and soft soap, and oh, is that right? And, you know, they refused to because they all want to seem like Dublin 4 West Brits. But Neil Richmond yesterday took off, and he basically said, look, 54% of the people of Northern Ireland voted against the Brexit. And this is where, to answer your point, he says 57% of businesses surveyed are in favour of the protocol. Now, if you listen to the unionist leadership, they're basically saying everybody's against it. No, they're not. Jude, by the way, I'm going to repeat myself, and I'll ask you the same question. I've yet to meet a single nationalist, businessman or other, in fact, against it. And in fact, only one businessman I really had a long conversation with recently is totally in favour of it. He's saying he has got now opportunities, north, south, east, west, and he says everything is, and his business in recent times has taken off like a rocket.
Yeah. In business terms, it doesn't make sense that they would see this as a bad thing. But I think, at the back of my mind, I have a wee bit of sympathy for the unionists, because, as I've always said, there's a tendency for politics to follow.
But Jude, hold on. No, where my sympathy stops, and I take your point. They had an opportunity, the DUP, to go with Theresa May's deal and reject, which would have done that, and it wasn't good enough. They wanted for the ultra Brit deal, and this is where it's landed them. And you know, and you sort of go, wait a minute, if you had been a wee bit less sort of arrogant and a wee bit more sort of careful, you wouldn't be in where you are today.
But you say that Brexit was built on the whole notion of Britain making its own rules, not having anybody else making the rules for them or being forced to follow certain rules because the EU is following certain rules. So on that myth, Brexit was built. So to try to, pull back on it and pretend that wasn't.
But here's a question for you: why would anyone in the EU believe, even if Johnson and Frost negotiated a new deal, they'd stick by that one either?
They did not have a good record. They didn't have a good record, but then Britain never had a good record. No. Anyway, okay. Well, I think we've kicked this stuff out of that enough. Let's go very quickly to the death of somebody who most people, well, many people of our age anyway, would remember, and that was the death of Desi O'Malley this week. And there was considerable testimony to the life he had lived as a politician and what a good man he was. The President of Ireland spoke highly of him. The leader Fine Gael, Lee Radcliffe, spoke highly of him. Micheál Martin spoke extremely highly of him. The Labour Party spoke very highly of him. I think the name was it didn't speak highly of him. They didn't say anything, as far as I know, was Sinn Féin.
Dr. Collins, what's your opinion of him?
Well, I was just going to say, let me fill in the background for people in case you don't remember. Desi O'Malley, like many another politician, came in the south particularly, but in the north too, but mainly in the south. Came into politics through the death of a close relative. His uncle died suddenly, Donogh O'Malley, who was a very sort of outstanding figure because he brought free education to the counties, which is not a big
I'm one of them. I'm one of his.
So, and I remember when that came in the mid-60s. But he then went on, he rose very quickly through the ranks and he became a Minister of Justice. And this is where things get pretty tricky. He was made Minister for Justice at the time when the Troubles were raging in the North. And he brought in the courts where there would be 3 judges sitting, no jury. And in these courts, IRA suspects were tried and sentenced heavily in many instances to Portlaoise prison. He also brought in the notion of, what was that second thing he had?
Offences against the state.
That's it, yeah. That if you had the word of a Garda superintendent, that if I was a Garda superintendent and I saw you and I was able to say to the authorities, that man, Pat McCart, I believe him to be an IRA activist. Yeah. And that was enough. There was no court case. You were then sent, well, maybe they had a court case after, but that was a formality. The word of the Garda superintendent was enough to send you to prison for several years. Yeah. And in fact, I had a story about that recently, but I'll not go into it because it's quite detailed. Those seem to me, actually, I can understand why they did it, because they said, well, the jury would be intimidated.
Yeah.
And they said also that people on the ground, authorities close on the ground, they'd be the people who would know who are the IRA activists. Yeah. So you can see their thinking behind it. But I do feel it sort of strikes the heart of democracy.
Yeah.
Justice, when you say, look, let's get rid of these tedious juries. Let's just have 3 judges who we know will be against these guys. Yeah. Let's have it so that we get quick sentencing. So the superintendent might just dislike this guy for all we know. Yeah. I just find that very hard to swallow. Obviously, Micheál Martin, Leo Varadkar, the President of Ireland, others had no problem swallowing it. And if you read the Irish Times, you would have seen that they spoke on very high terms of him. And in fact, they admired him for doing what he'd done. Yeah. What's your opinion about those special criminal courts and the special system of justice whereby a superintendent could point to somebody and say he's an IRA man and he could end up?
Jude, I am very, very ambivalent as regards a lot of what Dessie O'Malley. But Jude, at the time, I could understand some of what was going on and the sentiment down south and so on. And remember then there was Blaney Boland and what was the other guy's name? Yeah, the gun running. Jerry Hoy, Jesus, how can I forget Jerry Hoy? And
he was very, you should explain maybe, Pat, that Dessie O'Malley was very, very, very firmly behind the Taoiseach of the day, Jack Lynch.
Jack Lynch, yeah, exactly.
From
see, in this country, there's always going to be those. I always call them, for shorthand, the West Brit Brigade. And I'll put Dessie O'Malley in that. I'll go at it from a different way, and it's very personal and it's petty to a degree, but it's how I look at things sometimes. Watched the program one night about Dessie O'Malley, a profile of him, and there he was at the rugby club. When I was a young fella in RT, I was sent down to Fianna Fáil Ardèche, and I remember listening to Dessie O'Malley, and he was speaking with the marbles at his mouth, and there was a guy from Limerick worked alongside me, and I was wondering, wait a minute, here's this guy beside me, he doesn't speak like Dessie O'Malley, and I remember thinking, the Owen Harris, the what do you call her, Ruth Dudley Edwards, Jack Lynch, and all these people, how much understanding had they got of what it was like to live on the back streets of West Belfast or the Bogside, where 60 and 70% unemployment? These people. My point about all this, there was almost a class thing, I think, in some of these people, and I always thought O'Malley sort of personified that with that sort of snobby sort of middle class solicitor, and all that. And I sat and watched it, and one night I could understand to an extent what came in, but I did see when a Garda superintendent, and I've had a couple of rows with serving members of the Garda, that was a ridiculous abuse of power. No, I can't point to any abuse personally.
Please don't.
But people have told me that there were people who were moved off the street on the word of a Garda for reasons other than the fact they were in the IRA.
Yeah. We didn't mention the fact that he broke away from Fianna Fáil.
And Judy became a total right wing. The PDs were Thatcherites.
Oh, they were definitely.
And anybody tells me that he was a liberal Democrat and that he believed in, it was total right wing capitalism.
Oh yeah, well, very right wing. They described them as being progressive and business friendly. I think that'd be understating it. And I think if you wanted to get a flavour of what the PDs were, remember the fact that Michael McDowell was one of the major figures up there, along with
so here we have Mary Harney, Michael McDowell. I didn't see too many people from the back streets of Dublin and the PDs. It reflected a certain social view. I know you don't agree with it to an extent, but that was my opinion of them.
Well, I would think that was true, but then again, I suppose they've got a right to represent the constituency if they want to. Mind you, they only lasted for 25 years isn't bad, but they then perished. The man who founded them,
let's leave it with this. When Stephen Collins eulogizes them, that's enough for me.
Oh, you must try to restrain your prejudices, Pat.
Yeah, of course. I know he's a namesake of yours.
Bloody relative, though. I was going to say another word than bloody. Okay, let's move on to the Irish Examiner. And have you noticed that there's an Olympic Games going on?
Jude, I'm glad you put it that way. No, Jude, I remember I am a big sports fan. I genuinely mean that. I used to take a week's holidays when the World Athletic Championships were on. And I'd sit and my wife says, "Are you going to move today?" I'd sit and watch them. Jude, I hardly know. In fact, other than you mentioned the fact that it's today, the Irish girl, Sunita, what do you call her? She's Irish, all right.
I get your name now and say Sunita Puspure.
Is she Polish?
She was Latvian originally. Well, she came from Latvia. And I think she may have actually
world single sculls champion. And
she may have rode for Latvia, but she moved to Ireland in 2006. And pretty well from then on, I think 2010.
I think she married an Irishman and she moved, but she's a double world champion and she won her heat today. Now the two Irish guys, I can't remember their names. I think one of them was called Per. I can't remember the other guy. They went out in their heat. And they'll have to go in the ripper charge. So it was a very mixed day. But anyway, the Olympics are on, Jude. So someone after the European Champions or the Euros, the football, I'll have someone to keep me going until football starts again.
Well, I hope so. It all depends, of course, as far as I'm concerned, it all depends on what the boxers do. I remember the old days, when the Americans were central to the Olympic Games for one reason or another. I mean, I remember the time when the black athletes, sprinters, there'd be three of them and they went their heads
Tommy
down
Smith, I think,
black glove,
the Black Panther,
to show their realization.
Dr. Collins, did you know that after doing that, not one of them represented America ever again? It was Lee Evans, I think, Tommy Smith. I can't remember the other one.
Yes, right. Yeah, I have a good memory, Pat. Yeah. So I remember that. I remember. I can't remember the guy. I remember his first name, Carl. Somebody who was a brilliant sprinter, and he was a brilliant. Long jumper as well.
Carl Lewis,
yes, wonderful, and he's a very stylish guy too. A big, good-looking guy. I don't know, he may have been gay even, but anyway, those were flash. No offense. Did I step on a stereotype there?
You stepped on a stereotype there, but go ahead. It just exploded under you as well.
Hoist with my own petard. Okay, but in those days you had exciting figures like Muhammad Ali. Again, was another perfect example. He was a gold medalist when he fought in the Olympics, and they said he said himself he never took the medal off for 3 days. But they had color and they had style and they drew attention. But now I couldn't tell you who are the sprinters from the States. I couldn't tell you.
No, neither could I.
What about those?
The last day there was the wee girl that won them. Sorry.
You mentioned the rowers. Do you remember those two brothers from Cork that last time? Are they in this time?
Is it Sullivan's?
Something like a Sullivan, yeah.
They are brilliant. They're very, very funny guys.
Are they rowing this time?
No, Jude. You see, that's how much interest this time. I don't know. At one stage, they would have been dominating the news.
Yeah. How do you react, Pat, to the fact that Sunita Puspure is the rower for very successful rower for Ireland? Now, she's clearly, as you said, not a native of Ireland, but she has adopted Ireland as her country. And there are quite a few of the athletes who would be black, and they'd be brown, they'd be yellow, other colours. And that's still quite a novelty for Irish people.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your feeling when you see that? There's different reactions to that. What's your reaction to the fact that...
Jude, I am totally 100% in favour of it. Absolutely. If somebody comes here to this country and adds to the value of our state, all right, Jesus Christ, adds to the value of our state, I am all in favor of it. Jude, I think that anybody Irish that objects to anyone coming here should really get their head examined. We have gone to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, America, England, you name it. I think I keep telling you, if we go to the moon, we'll find a wee Irishman sitting in a corner reading the Daily Mirror and having a pint. See where I got the Daily Mirror in there, brother.
Well done.
I would see if somebody comes from Latvia and represents this country with honor, does well as a model representative for. I am so proud of them. Jude, we're living in a different world. Everything's changed, and if you come here and you're a decent human being and add to the value of our society, I'm with you.
I find it very interesting because I remember when I lived in Canada, many Canadians would often say, "Oh, how long have you been here?" And that's great. And how do you like it? And yeah, that's terrific. And you've got children here too. Good.
Yeah.
When we came back, when you left, then you to some extent you felt guilty. The kind of social pressure, and I understand that the social pressure was that you really should have fallen totally in love with their country, and not wanted to go back to Ireland and just became totally Canadian. Now that's the last thing that I would have wanted to do myself, and yet if I'd done it, I'm sure the people would be pleased. We feel the same way, I think, about people who. I would feel the same way, certainly, about the fact that Latvians or people from Africa or people from India come to Ireland and make it their home and really like being in it and are proud to represent it. I just feel really good about that.
Yeah, there's a wee black girl.
It's a bit unfair, is it?
Not at all. I agree with you totally. There's a wee black girl on the other night. She's a sprinter, and I think she's somewhere based in England, but she represents Ireland. She came with her family, and that wee girl is so proud to represent Ireland. And I think and she's, by the way, she's a real star. I think she won the under-20 European 100 meters and possibly 200 meters. She's claimed that when she came to Ireland, she was given this opportunity, and so it works both ways.
Well, yeah, but it's just this thing, Pat. Supposing somebody came to Ireland and you said, "Do you like it here?" And they'd say, "Yeah, I like it. Okay, I've got a job and I'm working, but I'm going back to my own country in 5-10 years time or whatever." You wouldn't feel even a small twinge of disappointment that they?
Oh yeah, Jesus, of course I would. I would. I'm the same as anybody else. Why are we not good enough for you? Like that's not me. That's unfair, not me dishonest.
Unfair, of course, it's unfair because these people come, and even they only come for 6 years or 3 years or 2 years. They come and they work, and they're very often better workers than the Irish themselves.
Absolutely.
And if they deliver the goods and are decent citizens or decent people living here, it's up to them wherever they want to. I understand completely the longing to be back in your own home country.
My wife's brothers, Rosie's brothers, 4 or 5 of them have spent 40 and 50 years in England. But every one of them went with the intention of coming back, but no life got on the way.
Oh, yes. It's a really odd thing that, Brian Friel wrote a great play about that called The Loves of Cass McGuire, about a woman who spent her life in America, come back to Ireland to retire, and boy, was she homesick for America.
For America,
anyway, actually, Pat, I believe that's us pretty well through. How long have we gone on for now? We've gone on for a wee while.
I'm sure I just flew as usual, Jude.
As usual, we have such fun at these, Pat. I'm telling you, look, I'm going to be immodest here, and so brace yourself. I'm going to be immodest. Yeah. I watch these pieces after we've done them just to see you haven't used any bad language, and I think they're pretty damn good. Is that very good for me to say that? I think they're pretty damn good compared to the average sort of po-faced people talking to you about current affairs.
By the way, Dr. Collins, I would like to point out I am restraining myself from using bad language. If you think I am using bad language,
I'd hate to think. I'd hate to see you with your. I'd hate to see you with your corsets off.
What is Mark McFadden of UGV? Once put it in a written article in the Daily Journal that I swore on an industrial scale.
Yeah. So what are you going to do, Pat? Are you plans for the weekend? Are you going to go out?
If it stays like that, I have a stationary bike and a rowing machine in there, and there's a lovely nature reserve down literally a stone throw, well, almost literally a stone throw from where I am sitting. And Jude, I haven't done anything this week. It's so warm. I sat outside yesterday reading a book, and copious cups of coffee, and I did nothing. And I now have to go to Letterkenny in a wee while because I'm involved in a project in Letterkenny at 7:30 tonight. It's a place I grew up in, and they're regenerating. So I'm going to that, and that's it.
Very good. That sounds good. What are you reading, Pat? Just tell me what you're reading, and I'll tell you what I'm reading.
Jude, what do you call it? Gee, it's Colin Tobin. I just actually finished it, and I'm reading the one. It just started yesterday, called the Gathering by Anne Enright.
Oh yes, she's very good too.
Well, I haven't got into it yet.
I'm thinking about her earlier writing. I remember reading her after she started, and I thought she was very good. To tell you the truth, I've stopped reading her since she won some big prize. Or not.
She won the Booker Prize. The one I'm reading, The Gathering, won the Booker Prize.
I think that's often the kiss of death. But anyway, Colin Tobin, are you enjoying The Heather Burning?
I finished, and it was very good, Jude. I have to admit. And I don't particularly like Colin Tobin. Actually, no. This is a disgraceful thing to say. I worked in RT, and he worked, I think, for the Irish Times. And it was a fella I never really got on with. Like he won't even remember me. Who are you? But we were in the same press room for a while. There were other people I met. No, I don't dislike him. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't get on with him. Didn't know him well enough to know him.
Well, I've never met the man, and I've only seen him on TV. I saw him at a thing in Clogher, a sort of a summer school in Clogher. And he struck me as being very grumpy looking, over serious, took himself hugely seriously.
But he writes very different to what he looks.
Exactly, Pat, you put your finger on it. He is a very, very talented writer.
Yeah, and a very...
I give him all his sins for that.
And you know, there's a sensitivity and an awareness there that doesn't come across in the person, but it comes across in the book.
Maybe he saves it for the work. I'm reading Somerset Maugham. Somerset Maugham, The Painted Veil. And it's interesting because it's about a woman going to China with her husband, who's a sort of an administrator, and there's a plague on. There's a plague, and it's just wiping out
today.
Exactly. The fear of being contaminated with it. But Somerset Maugham's he's a very accessible writer. He was a journalist, and he has that, I don't know what it is, that common touch, colorful. There's not, you never look at him and say, oh God, he's going to give me a boring patch of description here. Everything plays a purpose or plays a part in it. Just a lovely read. The Painted Veil, I'd recommend it. And If Human Bondage is a book I read.
I read it years ago.
I can't remember a thing about it, but I do remember being very impressed by it.
So, Jude, I'll leave you this. Remember you just said something about I won't bore you with it. Don't ever get Captain Corelli's mandolin. There's about 5 pages of how to describe how the strings on a mandolin are bollocks to that. On that note, Jude.
Okay, Pat. I know where to get the bad words now. Okay, Pat.
Bye, Jude.
Thanks very much.
Good luck. Cheers.
Fine day.